All right, so chapter 1 is the Introduction to Engineering Economy, and from those examples I showed you in the last class, in the last lecture, you already have a sense of what this class can teach you. Okay, it teaches you how to make wise decisions based on the cost and benefit analysis. So you will use engineering economy in your personal life. Should I pay cash or use my credit card? That's a very common question when you want to buy something, okay? And do I buy a semester parking pass or just use the parking meters? Okay, so those are just, common questions you need to answer every day. And to choose the right option, the things you're going to learn in the class can help. And then you will use engineering economy for work, of course. You can answer the question like which materials should be used as roofing, siding, and structure support for a new building. And also some question like which equipment should be selected for a new assembly line. Okay, so those are common questions or decisions you're going to make in your future work. So this class, all the techniques you're going to learn and the concepts and terminology, those things will help you a lot to answer similar questions like this. So engineering economy involves the systematic evaluation of the economic merits of proposed solutions to engineering problems. We have explained this in the last lecture. And it also about choose a solution so that you spend less, you get more, and you solve the problem. Okay, so these are just the definition of engineering economy. And here, we want you to know that there are 7 fundamental principles of engineering economy. So basically, all the steps you're going to follow to have this different analysis is based on this. So this is the foundation, okay, of all the calculations and estimations we're going to do. Well, there are 7 of them. So the first one is develop the alternatives. Okay, so that makes sense because whenever you have a problem to solve, you always have many ways to solve it, and that's why we're here to make a wise decision, right? If you only have one option, then there's no discussion about the choice. So develop the alternatives for your problem. And the second, focus on the differences. Okay, we're going to talk about the details of each one item later. Okay, and the third one is use a consistent viewpoint. Viewpoint means who is looking at the problem, who is the customer. Who is the one we want to benefit for making a decision. Okay, that's the viewpoint, or we say perspective. And the fourth, use a common unit of measure. Common unit means you want to translate everything to US dollars as much as possible. But for something that is not measurable, it's hard to translate into monetary unit. So for those ones, you also want to keep the unit consistent to compare different alternatives. That's what it means. And number 5, consider all relevant criteria, which means you want to consider all the possible factors that involved in the decision making. And 6, you want to make uncertainty explicit. So you might have market change, you might have uncertain conditions. You might have risks for paying off your loan. So you want to just think about all of these uncertain things at the beginning of the decision making and make it as explicit as possible. Okay. And the 7 is revisit your decisions. So everything is changing nowadays. So you want to make a decision and then you want to review your decision to see if it's a wise one. If not, you want to, to learn from it, like where you make it wrong. Okay. So that you can make a better decision the next time. So these are the 7 fundamental principles. Now let's take a look, each one of them. So principle 1, develop the alternatives. Well, it sounds very easy, okay, but sometimes it can be complicated. So what this principle about is you have to carefully define the problem first. You want to develop alternatives, but first you need to know what's your problem. Okay? Because without knowing the right problem, your alternatives might be, worthless. And whenever you have the problem correctly defined, that's the time you produce multiple solutions. Okay, so you want to carefully define the problem. And keep in mind that making no change to the current situation is always one possible solution. We might ignore this option, right? Because you always want to make a change, make something different. But you have to know, in the real project, sometimes no change is also one option. Like you just stay as is and see if it can be worse. Sometimes if you take an action, maybe it's even worse than just doing nothing. So keep in mind that making no change to the current situation is always one possible solution. Now let's take a look at this example. So what is the real problem of this company? Okay, this is a complicated case. That's where you have to carefully define the problem first. So the management team of a small furniture manufacturing company is under pressure to increase profitability to get a much needed loan from the bank. Okay, to purchase a more modern pattern cutting machine. One proposed solution is to sell waste wood chips and shavings to a local charcoal manufacturer instead of using them to fuel space heaters for the company's office and factory areas. So they already come up with one solution, but let's just stop there. Let's just define the problem first, okay? And so here I highlighted 3 items. Looks like they are 3 problems. So first, the company want to increase the profitability. They want to make more profit. Second, they want to get a loan from the bank. Third, they want to buy a new machine. Okay, so what is the real problem for this company? Just think about that. For the company, is their problem to, increase the profit because maybe they are in a bad financial situation? And the second, do they just want to have a loan from the bank to get more money from the bank? Third, do they just want to have a new machine? Is that their goal? So, well, I think for this company, their real problem is their profit. Okay, because the reason why they want to get a loan is they want to do something. They want to do something with the money from the bank so that they can increase their profit. Okay, and although they want to buy a new machine, the reason behind that is they want to use the new machine to produce more modern or more products in a short time so that they can cut their cost. But to do that, it's still, the reason is they want to increase their profit. So for this company, the real problem is not to get a loan, is not to get a machine, it is to increase their profit. Okay, so that's why we say sometimes it can be complicated. You have to pay attention to the real problem. And once you have defined the problem, like this one, you want to increase the profit, now it's a time to come up with many solutions. Like one solution is you can produce more and then you sell more and then you have more revenue and then you have more profit, right? The second solution might be you can cut your cost with new machine or with more efficient work, and then with the same revenue your cost is less, so your profit is higher, right? So these are the solutions, but it has to be based on the right problem first. And principle 2, focus on the differences. What does it mean? So think about that. If you have multiple options to compare, you don't want to waste your time to consider the things they all have. You just want to focus on the differences, okay? That's what I mean. For example, you want to decide which house to buy. Okay, now you have two houses candidates. The situation is the price of the two houses are the same. So that's something they share. They have the same price. However, the maintenance costs, the utility costs, the commuting costs are different for these two houses. So when you want to make a decision which house to buy, what you need to consider is those differences. You don't want to waste your time to think about the price anymore because they are the same, okay? Just focus on the maintenance cost, the utility cost, and the commuting cost to see which house can save you more. That's what this principle is about. And the principle 3, you want to use a consistent viewpoint. So the prospective outcomes of the alternatives should be consistently developed from a defined viewpoint or perspective, which means whenever you're analyzing the problem, you are looking at the cost, the benefit, you want to look at from the same perspective. Let's just look at this example. That will explain more. Your parents saved $1,000 under your bank account as a gift. Should you withdraw a quarter of the total amount, like $250 every 3 months? So after a year, you withdraw all of them? Or you want to withdraw the total amount of $1,000 in the end of that 1 year? Okay, so these are the different options. You can withdraw $250 for 4 times in a year. And you can also withdraw that $1,000 in the end of that year. But which one you want to choose? Well, to make this decision, you have two perspectives. So one perspective is you, like you are the one to withdraw the money. And another perspective could be the bank, okay? The bank has that $1,000 saving in its institution. And the bank wants you to, withdraw for 4 times, or the bank wants you to keep the money for a longer time, and then you withdraw 1 time in the end of the year. So from different perspective, the choice could be different, okay? And when you make the decision, you want to make that perspective consistent. So if you're looking at the problem from your point of view, you're going to look at it from your point of view from the beginning to the end of this problem solving. Okay, you don't want to change the perspective. Like, okay, I will look at it from my perspective, and then in the middle of the analysis, I'm going to look at it from the bank's perspective. That's wrong. Just keep the perspective the same. And principle 4, use a common unit of measure. This means that you want to use a common unit of measurement to enumerate as many of the prospective outcomes as possible. That will simplify the analysis of the alternatives. So you want to translate all the outcomes into the same monetary unit, for example, US dollars, so that you can have 2 or 3 options compared in the US dollars. That's the easiest way, okay? Or if you're in Canada, you can translate everything into Canadian dollars. That's the meaning of this principle. Just use the same unit. And principle 5 is to consider all relevant criteria. Criteria means the factors you consider. So the decision process should consider both the monetary criteria and other unit of measurement. Okay, one example is we're talking about if Gulfport, the city of Gulfport, if it needs a new passenger railway connecting Gulfport with New Orleans. Do we need that? Make the decision. So the criteria to consider is, of course, about the cost of this new railway, and then the benefit, right? How many passengers will buy the ticket? That's the revenue for the railway company. And how many passengers will visit Gulfport and spend money in the restaurants and the hotels. That's also the revenue. So that's something you can translate into US dollars. As long as you know how many passengers will, get down the train and get on the train every day. But there are something else you still need to consider, but it's not measurable, like the quality of life. So we all know that the more transportation modes we have, the more options we have. So we're free to choose from the different ways to move ourselves. And the new railway station, you can have more economic development around it. You can have small businesses around it, and it will bring the town the new visitors, so that you can boost your local economy. Well, all of things added up together, they will change your quality of life. But how do we quantify the quality of life? There is no specific way to translate that into the US dollars. So that's something unmeasurable. But you still need to consider that, because that's very important. Okay? And then whatever measurement you use to quantify that, although it might not be US dollars, but you still have to make that unit consistent between different options. Like option 1 is to build that railway station and passenger railway. Option 2 is doing nothing. Okay, you want to compare the quality of life of these two options in the same unit. Principle 6, make risk and uncertainty explicit. So risk and uncertainty should be recognized in the analysis and the comparison, okay? And things like market change, things like policy change, and the new technology, the new technology will change the way of our production and the way we communicate. So those things can change your business plan. Okay, it can change your ability to maybe pay the loan. It can change your market. So those are the things uncertain. But based on your experience, you have to think about this at the beginning of the decision making and also during the analysis. And principle 7 is to revisit your decisions. It means you have to compare the initial projected outcomes with actual results achieved. Like you make a decision to choose option 1, and then when the moment you choose that option, you have a projection of your future revenue, future income, future market, right? Well, you made the decision based on that future projection. But whenever you hit that year, you are in that future year already. You want to compare what is the reality and what is your projection to know like if you have the right method to project the future condition, and then you can improve your next decision making. And based on those principles, we have several steps to do the engineering economy analysis. Okay, so you can see that almost every step will resonate with the principle. Okay, so first you need to have your problem defined. Second, you want to develop alternatives. Third step, you want to develop prospective outcomes. And fourth step is selection of decision criterion. Fifth step is to analyze and compare alternatives. And sixth step is to select the preferred alternative. And seventh is to use the performance monitoring and post-evaluation for the results. So these are the 7 steps. And I think in this class, we're going to learn the technique to do step number 4, number 5, number 6. So those are the things we focus. So we usually will start with some defined problem with given options, and then the questions for